Outside.
Little shimmy in the house, just be drilling up in the house. Little shimmy remixing up in the gimmicks, no ups. We be remixing up style, be playing for the real player styles. Little shimmy making big comeback in the house. All night and all day, you better be ready, be square. This is Little Shimmy's time, better be square. Better re-square. Forge gang in the house, forge gang in the house. We be remixing it up, Little Shimmy drilling and beating. This is where we be getting it all the time. This is here, suffering amnesia, suffering amnesia. Here we go, suffering from amnesia, suffering from random amnesia. Sometimes I feel just not like getting on with on. Sometimes I really feel like I just want to drill some beats, remixing up Little Shimmy styling, just be riling. You get where I'm going. All night we be waving on here. Let's just be gozing it. I feel the jiving, getting it on. This is Little Shimmy, just be riling up. Be riling up. Be riling it up with the best, top of the crew, with the best, the very best in the business and the crew. Remixing it style, this is so true. Remixing it style, this be getting at, we fix it, this be getting at, we here, this be getting at, we mix it, this be getting at, we mix it, this be getting at, we mixing, this be getting at, we mixing. All right. I kind of wanted to come into it in a gray style manner, you know, kind of coming in a kind of started up in a very little different light. I hate that I went 5 minutes doing that, but hey, I wanted to build up gradually from the start of the stream to this moment. So here we go. Forge Gang! I'm still a hard man. All right. Was that retarded enough for you, Schwalbe? Was that retarded enough for you, bro? Was that not retarded enough for you, Schwalbe? What's up, bro? Hey, You know what, Swelby? You don't have 130 subs like I do, so. Well, I'm sorry, actually 145 subs, so who gives a shit what your opinions are? So, let's go! All right. Now, all right, so press ones in the chat if you want some more remixes. Press 2 in the chat if you want to go on to the discussion. We'll just go from there. So yeah, you get the beat, you get the drill. So let's do some ones if we want to do some more remixes and twos. I see where this is going. I dig it, man. I know what y'all want. I know what y'all want. You want some more remixing. You want some more of it. You want some more of the good stuff. I am so out of practice, though. It's not like what I could really, really do back with the Wigger in the Far East. I have really fallen out of practice. Let's dig it. Let's feel it. You know that you see it. Hardcore Wigger. Killer Wigger in the Far East. Just be getting at it. Just be getting at it. You know we be remixing at it. This track. Let's be getting it. Little shimmy in the house, yo. Little shimmy ready to go, yo. The killer Wigger's in the house. This is Chesson for the baby. You get the schnizzle. You feel the whizzle. I kick it in the ass like a real motherfucker player. Let's go. Little shimmy hour. Just be rilin'. Just be feeling. You know it's shaking. That's my rapping. That is where it's going at. You be feeling that. You be feeling that beat. Just with gibbets. Yeah, feel that beat. Just be gibbets. This ain't no reality. This is real fictional. Always inspirational. I feel the inspiration. Do you not feel the exasperation? It's just getting inspired by the Lord God Almighty. Just getting all inspired by the Lord God Almighty. He gifted me with the session. Just be riling. Are we styling in or not? Let's be getting it. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Wigger in the Far East 2's coming out with a real banger. For the Wigger. Wigger banger. Bang, bang, bitch. That's where we go. This is how you feel it. I be dropping a note. You be feeling the beat. Feeling rapping beat. Freestyling beat. When I drop that note, yeah. KZ crazy. This is where we feeling it. You know it be getting it. You know it be drilling it. Drill that beat hard like a real Wigger. Drill that beat hard like a real mofo. Gun and game up. Game banging all the time. This is be real playing. You messing with the wrong hood, son. We the real players. Forge game players. Feel it, real players. Ticket it, real players. Masons get BTFO'd all the real time by the real players. Illuminati. We be exposing it. With the drill beating it. We be falling it. It be falling back. All right. You guys want some more? Hey, I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling the inspiration, bro. It's pumping up in me. You guys want one more? Yeah, let's do one more, bro. I don't need to ask you guys if you want one more. I know you do. Let's go. Yo, I feel the experience. I feel like I'm tripping out, just losing my mind. I feel tripped out. I think I'm just losing it. 'cause I'm losing and tripping over it. Entering the zone. This is the zone. This is the zone where the real players go. Feeling inspired by the Lord in the zone. Welcome to the zone. Can you feel the inspiration? Perspiration running through your veins. Perspiration. 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration in the zone. The zone feel hot. The zone spawn hot. There's no time to think, only to react on impulse. Pure instinctive, bestial instinctive. No time to think, all the time to feel in the zone. This feeling hot, my homies. You messing with the wrong hood. You messed with the wrong hood. In the zone. Drilling, beating hard in the zone, yo, dog. Drilling, beating on in the zone, oh, dog. Drill, beating hard in the zone, oh, yeah. Drill, beating hard in the zone, be feeling it. Drilling in the zone, just be shizzling alone, feeling in the zone. Don't be alone in the zone when you feel inspirational. You can't feel alone in the zone when you know that it is coming for you now in the zone. Remix it, always be drilling, beat again. Just the snares, all you got that. The chill is on your back lap side. You feel the crazy has attacked right by ya. In the zone, you can't be alone. 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration. Just be drilling it. Digging. You dig it, dog in the zone. Dig it, dog in the zone. This is where we go. Be playing. Real players hot. Real players shaking hot. Drill beating it. But we're not alone in the zone with the forge. Gang. Gang, gang, gang. Gang, bang. Real players in the zone. Real players in the zone. Gang banging it on in the zone. Gang banging it on in the zone with the real homie players. You can't be for wearers. No worries. Just chill. Just be chilled in the zone. You feel alone in the zone. You zoning out, homie. Don't be square. Just be chilling in the zone. Feeling drifting off in the zone when you smoke some. When you smoke some. In the zone. When you smoke some, you're in the zone, homie. You feel what I'm saying? That's right, my real homies. This is Channel Little Shimmy. All right, that's enough. Friend zone. Carre says friend zone. Dropping that fire brimstone in the zone. This is where we chillin' on in the zone. You catch what I'm feeling. You know it just be drillin'. It's drilled into the zone all day and all night. Anyway, I gotta go to work. Catch you later. Cool, bro. All right, man. That was a great build up for the topic which I want to talk about today. Man, it's been so long since I have done something like that. Yeah, it's been a pretty good long time since I have actually done that. Put up a freestyle. All right. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Look, dude, they're cheering me on. The crowd is cheering me on. They're yelling, encore! Give us an encore, little shimmy. Give us an encore. Give us an encore, bro. Give us an encore. All right. Maybe at the end of the stream, I'll do some more. Dude, I have not dropped some freestyles in a pretty long while. Hasn't it been? Hasn't it now been? All right. So I picked up on something here. Now, when it comes to Toxic Angel, it is very hard to know when he is being serious or he's just making it up. And probably he is just bullshitting at me. He's probably just completely bullshitting, and I probably should not take what he says for granted. But I noticed that he was talking to Shaggy about something about Albert Pike's morals and dogma. And I did not clip that, but I clipped a part of it in a video I uploaded about Toxic Angel. And Shaggy, and what was going on was that Toxic and Shaggy were kind of going on about Mormonism and Freemasonic connections. Huh? And he was like talking, he brought up Albert Pike's morals and dogma. And I clipped the very first part of that as part of something else that I clipped. And when I did that, he literally deleted all of his videos and streams on the cornfields, and then he rebranded it as Dead Channel. It's now rebranded as something else, but I thought that was weird. Oh, I know who you are now, Corey. You're a Z-Man. You're a Zony guy from J Danks. I know who you are now, bro. I recognize you. What's up, bro? No hard feelings, man. I'm glad that you're taking it easy and you're enjoying my streams, bro. But I figured out who you are now. You're a Zony or a Ziani or whatever your name is, bro. That's probably not how your name is pronounced, but I don't know, dude. The stars at night are big and bright, in deep down in the heart of Texas, in the deep state of Texas. Oh, you're a female. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know who you are, bro. But yeah, Toxic was probably just taking a lot of drugs or something. He's one of those people that stays real high like all the time, and he goes through these imbalances with his emotions and stuff when he withdraws from drugs. I guess what really happened was Toxic was going through drug withdrawal and he just deleted everything on his channel. He said that he was going to leave the internet on one of these videos on esoteric shaggyism, and now he's back, poking fun at me. You probably didn't know this, but he does it real subtly. But basically, he streams the same way that I stream, and he talks the same way that I do. And he's doing that, by the way, he's doing that to poke fun at me. Has a lighthearted joke. It's not insultive to me as a person. It's not insulting me. He's just doing it in a lighthearted, very typical troll way, kind of like Burger Boy. But yeah, he's kind of just mimicking the way that I talk, just the way that I talk. And he goes on and on about shit, about stuff. He's copying me. He's trying to be little me, dude. He's doing it to belittle and poke fun at me. Okay. In a very lighthearted way, by the way. Very lighthearted. It's not meant to be an insult to my person, my real life person. It's just to attack the style of the way that I talk on my channel. And that's it basically. But yeah, I noticed that he was doing that. But whatever, dude. I don't understand people like that. What's up, Ghost of Niccolo? How are you doing, bro? Dude, I've literally been 20 minutes into this. Man, we gotta really get into the subject here. I've gone 20 minutes just doing virtually nothing. All right, the topic of the video. So the topic of the video is going to be about Freemasonry in Texas. I think that this will be an interesting one. So it looks like only toxic and esoteric shaggyism, not the actual Shaggy, but the esoteric guy, are both streaming right now. So the title of the video is When You Observe the Alamo and Have a Functioning Brain. I'm just going to make sure that my stream is the title of the video is When You Observe the Alamo and Have a Functioning Brain. Okay, it's working, bro. All right, so yeah. So for those of you that want to stay on and you want to know what my perspective is about this, I'm going to start going into that part of it now. I wanted to do some drill beats because, there's a lot of people that follow me that want to listen to my raps and freestyles. And I wanted to give them some of that. So most of these guys that follow me for my freestyles, they're going to go now and, the one or two people that are going to watch me for the history stuff are going to stay on and continue to watch. So that's just that's just how it is, dude. Unfortunately, most people follow me because they want to hear my freestyles or, listen to what sort of novelty I have to say about intelligence agencies and this other crap that I do with my stupid channel. All right, so yeah. So let me draw your attention to this stuff. So I think it's easy to point out that Abraham Lincoln was a war criminal. I think that we can agree to that. Let me switch over to my screen. Oh, I gotta get on the share option. Okay, there we go. All right, now if I can direct your attention, I'm about to talk about the subject at hand. So let's just say, Abraham Lincoln's a war criminal. I think that 90% of the people in the chat are going to agree with this. And I'm sure that, some of you at least would know that Abraham Lincoln was a Freemason, right? Here he is with his this is not an actual photograph of Lincoln, but this is to give you an idea. This is a sketch of Abraham Lincoln with Freemasonic garb. So if this man, this war criminal, Abraham Lincoln, destroyed all of this stuff, all these guys, they pulled up rail tracks, they tore up plantations and stuff in the South, killed a bunch of people, a bunch of Southerners and stuff, and freed a bunch of slaves. I'm sure that 95% of you that are watching this right now are not going to take issue with the fact that Lincoln was a Freemason. And, I'm very sure that it comes as no surprise for you guys to find out that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a Freemason too. The American president who firebombed Germany, killed a bunch of Germans, with the firebombing of Dresden. And he was still alive when Dresden was firebombed, And yes, Harry Truman, the next president to come in office before Germany surrendered, was also a Freemason. Now here comes sort of the more controversial issues that, some of you guys will probably be more divided about. The simple fact that Abraham Lincoln and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Harry Truman and Woodrow Wilson, they all pulled their inspiration back to the first president himself, George Washington, that was a Freemason. So if you're going to be serious, if you're going to be actually serious with yourself, how can you say that Lincoln and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Harry Truman were bad presidents because they were Freemasons, but George Washington was a good president for being the same thing? Okay, and the simple fact, or the simple answer, is no. The simple answer of the matter is they're all bad, including the first president. And if you're going to literally go out of your way of talking about how much of a Freemason and a Luciferian Abe Lincoln was, and all these war crimes done against Southern people, how can you not deny, how could you at the same time deny that the founders of the Republic of Texas were mostly Freemasons themselves? How could you seriously look at yourself in the mirror and not say that Sam Houston was a Freemason, or he was not a Freemason? He was part of the ancient free and accepted Masons at the time. The fact of the matter is that most Protestant cultures and Protestant traditions are heavily, heavily tied to Freemasonry. This is a Freemasonic scarf, and look right down here. Does that not look familiar? It's the coat of arms of Texas. So I didn't download an example of that. So that's the state emblem of Texas right there. And it's right there. This is a Freemasonic apron of some early Freemason that settled back in the Republic of Texas. How can you seriously look at yourself and say that George Washington was a good president and was a Freemason, but then say that Abraham Lincoln was also a Freemason but a bad president? Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the largest population of Japanese Catholics. Coincidence, Masons hate Catholicism. Well, if you know what Rick Perry told me, Ghost of Niccolo, Rick Perry said that for 100 years, the Catholic Church banned Freemasons from attending Catholic churches and being members of the Catholic Church. In the late 1700s, the popes literally passed some bill, some act that said that Freemasons cannot be truly devout Catholics, and members of Catholics or members of the Catholic Church cannot be Freemasons. You know? So why would that be the case? Why would you, in your right mind, say that Abraham Lincoln, the Freemason, Abraham Lincoln, is a bad president, but that Sam Houston, the so-called father of Texas, is a good person when he is a Freemason? Sam Houston was part of the fraternity of the ancient free and accepted Masons. Okay, that's one of those looser branches of Freemasonry. I think that it's a subset that derives from the primitive and accepted branch of Freemasonry, but I'm not entirely for sure about that. So I'm sorry to tell you guys this, but the Battle of the Alamo is completely meaningless. Most of the Mexicans in Santa Anna's army were Catholic. The vast majority, if not all of the Mexicans that were fighting against the Texans at the Alamo and San Jacinto were Roman Catholic believers. Most of the Texans, including Davy Crockett, literally Davy Crockett, was a Freemason. I'll show you right now. And he, supposedly, there is a legend that Davy Crockett died at the Alamo. Well, guess what? He was a Freemason. Brother Davy Crockett. This is Davy Crockett right here. He died, supposedly he died, according to a legend, he died at the Alamo in Texas in 1836. And here he is with his Freemasonic garb. Most people in the early 19th century, in fact, pretty much all important people back in the day that had any kind of connections or anything, were Freemasons. Honoring these Masons, James Bonham, James Bowie, David Crockett. That's Davy Crockett right there. The Grand Lodge of Texas, AFS and AM. So that's how you know that they were Freemasons. There's also some degree that Catholics can't be communist, I want to say. I think that goes back to the church's stance against Jacobinism. The Catholic Church, well, the papacy was against the French Revolution, and then it came out against the Risorgimento, the Italian Risorgimento, and the 1848 revolutions in the Italian states when Italy was united into one kingdom under the House of Sardinia. Formerly, it was the House of Piedmont, and then it became the House of Sardinia, or the Kingdom of Sardinia and Piedmont, and it united Italy. And there was a lot of Freemasonic influence in that, and the Russian Revolution and all these other communist movements. But Ghost of Niccolo, you have to understand that the right wing was also Freemasonic. The Freemasons played all sides. Santa Anna was a Freemason, and so was Sam Houston. The Grand Lodge of the Republic of Texas. At the formation of the Grand Lodge of the Republic of Texas in December 1837, Anson Jones was elected its first Grand Master of Texas. He also became the first Grand Master of the Independent Order of Oddfellows in Texas. Since Asa Brigham had been influential in the founding of the Masonic Lodge in Brazoria, he served as a charter member of the Masonic Grand Lodge of Texas in Houston on December 20th, 1837. He was appointed auditor of the Republic of Texas by David J. Burnett and named Texas's first treasurer by President Sam Houston in December 1836. He was reappointed as treasurer by Marabeu B. Lamar in January 1839, but left the treasury in April the next year. He was charged with using state funds for private purposes during his time as treasurer, but later cleared. So the Masonic Convention in Texas let's see here. So yeah, Freemasons from the very beginning of the Republic of Texas were very instrumental in having a profound influence on Texas. Freemasons and the Texas Revolution. Texas was in the midst of war. The first shots. Oh yeah, by the way, Stephen F. Austin was part of the let's see here, where was it? Yeah, Stephen F. Austin. Here we go. Stephen F. Austin was a member of Louisiana Lodge 111 in St. Genevieve, Missouri. He sought to establish Freemasonry in Texas. Freemasonry was well established among the educated classes of Mexican society. It had been introduced among the aristocracy loyal to the House of Bourbon, or Bourgeon, and the conservatives had total control over the order. By 1827, Americans living in Mexico City had introduced the United States York Rite of Freemasonry as a liberal alternative to the established European-style Scottish Rite. On February 11, 1828, Austin called a meeting of Freemasons at San Felipe to elect officers and petition the Masonic Grand Lodge in Mexico City for a charter to form a lodge. The first concerted effort to institute a Masonic lodge on Texas soil was begun by Stephen F. Austin, Ira Ingram, H. League, and 4 other Masons. On February 11, 1828, they prepared a petition addressed to the York Grand Lodge of Mexico, asking for a dispensation to form a lodge at San Felipe de Austin, to be known as the Lodge of Union, where the above-named men has its principal officers. The York Masonic Lodge, however, was expelled from Mexico by a decree of the general government, and this first effort of Texas Masons was futile. Austin was elected worshipful master of the new lodge, although the petition reached Matamoros and was to be forwarded to Mexico City. Nothing more was heard of it. By 1828, the ruling faction in Mexico was afraid the liberal elements, that is, referring to the York Rite in Texas, might try to gain their independence. Fully aware of the political philosophies of American Freemasons, the Mexican government outlawed Freemasonry on October 25, 1828. In 1829, the following year, Austin called another meeting of Masons who, in an attempt to alleviate the fears of the Mexican government, decided it was impolitic and imprudent at this time to form Masonic lodges in Texas. So I really do wonder, what exactly was the Texas War of Independence really all about? Why do you think that maybe it might have had something to do with the fact that Mexico outlawed Freemasonry in the province of Tejas, or Tejas? In the UK, there are local government lodges where members of opposing parties mingle together, obviously a corrupt practice. It's the exact same thing in Washington and Wall Street, Rick Perry. We have the exact same system over here. There are lodges that specialize and cater to all professions. For example, lodges composed of members of the insurance industry, etc. Well, they're modeled on the mercantile orders, right? Are the mercantile kind of leagues of the late Middle Ages. These types of lodges support monopolies and price fixing. Well, isn't it just interesting that the first state treasurer of the Republic of Texas happened to be a Freemason? And as soon as Texas became independent of Mexico, just by coincidence, all of a sudden they started to have a fiat currency, or a central cartel banking system. Isn't that interesting? Founding of Masonry in Texas and Holland Lodge. On March 1st, 1835, 5 master masons met in a little grove of peach or laurel at the town of Brazoria, near a place known as General John Austin's, and resolved to petition Grand Master John H. Holland of the Grand Lodge of Louisiana, asking for a dispensation to form a lodge in Texas. Foremost among these 5 Masons was Anson Jones, who would later serve as Grand Master and as President of the Republic of Texas. A record of the meeting was written by Anson Jones as follows. The place of the meeting was back of the town of Brazoria, near the place known as General John Austin's, in a little grove of wild peach or laurel, of which had been elected as a family burying ground by that distinguished soldier and citizen. The spot was secluded and out of the way of Coans and eavesdroppers, and they felt they were alone. Here, and under such circumstances, at 10 o'clock in the morning of a day in March 1835, was held the first formal meeting in Texas has connected with the establishment and continuance of Masonry in this country. Anson Jones, John Wharton, Asa Brigham, James Phelps, and Alexander Russell, wishing to formally meet as an organized Masonic lodge, met under the Masonic oak near the burial ground of General John Austin and petitioned the Grand Lodge of Louisiana. So, isn't that interesting? And then 9 years after Stephen F. Austin was granted permission to establish a colony in Mexican Texas, the rapid Americanization of the area and growing anti-Mexican sentiment for suppression of civil and religious liberties gave rise to the passage of a law on April 6, 1830, which forbid further immigration of Anglo-Americans into Texas. What was actually going on was that they were banning the influence of the York Rite of Freemasonry and pretty much all forms of Freemasonry in Mexico. So that's why they actually stopped the immigration of Anglo-Americans. The Scottish Rite has traditionally been used for revolutionary activity. The so-called high degrees are just used as a buffer zone and provide distance and plausible deniability. Separated from the main craft Freemasonry, which holds the real authority in its grand ranks, a craft mason who holds rank in his provincial grand lodge at state level or country. So these would be considered craft masons who are coming into Mexican Tejas and are trying to trigger a revolution to break away from Mexico. Wait a second. During this time, a petition was in due time forwarded to the Grand Lodge of Louisiana and dispensation granted for the formation of a Grand Lodge in Texas. The Masonic Oak is located on the south side of Pleasant Street in Brazoria, across from the main Masonic Oak Park and Pavilion. That charter creating Holland Lodge Number 1 was issued and signed on 27th December 1835 by John Holland, Grand Master of Louisiana. It was given to a Mr. John M. Allen, originally of Louisiana Lodge Number 32, to carry to Texas. Allen had been recruiting volunteers for the Texas Army in New Orleans and would not reach Texas until just before the Battle of San Jacinto on 21st April 1836. Holland Lodge Number 36 of Louisiana was instituted and opened on the second floor of the old courthouse in Brazoria, Texas. And when the lodge was sent to labor, Jones was elected its first master. Meetings continued here until March 1836, when Brazoria was abandoned due to General Orea and his Mexican troops taking possession of the town of Brazoria. The Mexican troops destroyed the records, regalia, and property of the Holland Lodge, and appropriated its dispensation to work. The members of the lodge were scattered by the havoc of war. James Fannin, who had become a member of this lodge, was among those who had been massacred at Gallade. Jones, Wharton, and Phelps joined the Texan troops on the Colorado River about the middle of March. During this time, the official charter issued to Holland Lodge Number 36 was delivered to Texas and presented to Anson Jones just before the Battle of San Jacinto, while the Texian troops were retreating before the forces of General Santa Anna. The charter for Holland Lodge Number 36 arrived in April 1836, and Jones carried it in his saddlebags during the Battle of San Jacinto. This document arrived safely in Brazoria after the battle, but the brethren had dwindled in number post-revolution. After the capture of Santa Anna, the dispensation was returned to Jones, and thereafter both the dispensation and charter were taken back to Brazoria. Because of the depleted membership of the lodge, however, no effort was made to resume labor at Brazoria, and no further meetings were held until the lodge was reopened in the Senate chambers of the Republic of Texas at Houston in October 1837. Two other subordinate lodges were established in Texas under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Louisiana Masons. They were Milam Lodge Number 40 at Nacogdoches and McFarland Lodge Number 41 at San Augustine. Hayden Edwards was the first master of Milam Lodge. William McFarland was the first master of McFarland Lodge. Each of these lodges was issued its charter on September 22, 1837. Freemasons and the Texas Revolution. Texas was in the midst of war. The first shots of the Texas Revolution had been fired in October 1835 at Gonzales. Delegates had gathered at the small town of Washington on the Brazos and signed the Texas Declaration of Independence on 2 March 1836. The Mexican army under General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna had crossed the Rio Grande and attacked and defeated the small garrison of the Alamo in San Antonio de Bexar. Among the nearly 200 defeaters who died at the Alamo were Freemasons James Bonham, James Bowie, David Crockett, Almaron Dickinson, and William Barrett Travis. There has existed for many years the story or myth that General Santa Anna captured on 21st April 1836 after the defeat of the Mexican army after the Battle of San Jacinto, was able to save himself from execution by giving secret Masonic signs when he was captured. And again, when he was brought before General Sam Houston, Texas historian James D. Carter recorded in his book Masonry in Texas that Texas Masons contemporary with the Battle of San Jacinto stated emphatically that Santa Anna filled the air with Masonic signs after his capture and had given a Masonic grip to Houston. C.R. Wharton, in his book El Presidente, stated that Santa Anna, fearing for his life, gave the Masonic distress signal to John A. Wharton. Santa Anna probably knew the appropriate grips and signs since he was a member of the Scottish Rite in Mexico, which had become dominated by men devoted to Mexican government centralization. Within Mexico, opposition to the centralists found itself organized around Mexico's York Rite establishment, although by 1833, both had mostly been displaced in popularity by a Mexican national rite, although Santa Anna kept his Scottish Rite associates around him. Whether or not this specifically saved his life is not clear. What is certain is that Santa Anna was worth more to Texas alive than dead. President Andrew Jackson, a member of the same Masonic lodge as Sam Houston, Cumberland Lodge number 8 at Nashville, Tennessee, wrote to Houston and implored him to spare Santa Anna's life, reminding Houston that while he is in your power, the difficulties of your enemy in raising another army will be great. Let not his blood be shed, unless imperious necessity demands it. Both wisdom and humanity enjoy this course of relation to Santa Anna. So Houston and Jackson were York Rite Freemasons, and Santa Anna was Scottish Rite Freemason. There used to be revolutionary activity and laterally social engineering comparable to the general uprisings of classical Marxism, juxtaposed with perpetual cultural revolutions of the Fabians and the Frankfurt School. Most folk on the internet think that high-grade Freemasonry is where it's at, but in reality, it is very easy to rise through those degrees. Yeah, I remember that when Joseph Smith became a Scottish Rite Freemason, in less than a day, he was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. He literally went from 1 to 33rd degree in just one day at Nauvoo. So I do remember that. The Grand Lodge of the Republic of Texas, the Masonic Convention in December 1837, the Grand Lodge of Texas, Masons in the government of the Republic. While there is no standard yardsticks by which to measure the degree of influence which the Masons, individually and collectively, exerted upon the early life of Texas, it is interesting to note the large number of that fraternity who held high positions of leadership in the establishment and operation of the government under the Republic. The journal of the proceedings of the convention, which met in the town of Washington on March 1st, 1836, for the purpose of establishing a new government, discloses the personnel of the various committees of the convention. Of the 5 delegates who were appointed on the committee to draft rules for the order and government of the convention, 4 were Masons. The report of this important committee was unanimously adopted by the convention. Of the 59 delegates who signed the Declaration of Independence, which was adopted on March the 2nd, 1836, 20 were known to be Masons. 2 of the 21 members of the committee appointed to draft a proposed constitution for the Republic, 7 were Masons. So this is just basically like the Declaration of Independence, 1776, all over again. Masonic leaders held important positions in the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of the government throughout the life of the Republic. All 5 vice presidents of the Republic who presided over the deliberations of the Senate were Masons. Of the 9 speakers of the House of Representatives, 7 were Masons. In addition to these 11 presiding officers, 53 other members of the Congress of the Republic are known to have been Masons. The Constitution of the Republic provided that the judicial powers of the government should be vested in the Supreme Court, and such inferior courts as the Congress might from time to time ordain and establish. It also provided that the Republic should be divided into convenient judicial districts, not less than 3 nor more than 8 in number, and that the judges of the several judicial districts, together with the Chief Justice of the Republic, should constitute members of the Supreme Court. The first Congress enacted a law dividing the Republic into 4 judicial districts, but the number was increased from time to time until 8 districts had been created. During the life of the Texas Republic, an aggregate of 14 judges wrote opinions for the Supreme Court. Of this number, 8 were Masons: Chief Justice Thomas J. Rusk and Judges R.E.B. Baylor, John M. Hansford, Patrick C. Jack, John T. Mills, William B. Ochiltree, Richard A. Scurry, and A.B. Shelby. In the executive branch of the government, each of the 4 presidents of the Republic was a Mason. Serving with David J. Burnett as provisional president of the ad interim government were the following Masons: Lorenzo D. Salvala, Vice President James Collinsworth, Secretary of State Thomas J. Rusk, and M.B. Lamar, Secretaries of War, and Warren Hall, Adjutant General. In the cabinet with President Sam Houston during his first administration were the following Masons: Morabeyu B. Lamar, Vice President, Morabeyu B. Lamar, Vice President, Stephen F. Austin, Secretary of State, Thomas J. Rusk, Secretary of War, James Pinckney Henderson, Attorney General, and Robert Barr, Postmaster General. In President Morabeyu B. Lamar's cabinet were the following Masons: David G. Burnett, Vice President Abner S. Lipscomb, Secretary of State Branch T. Archer, Secretary of War James Webb, Attorney General Robert Barr, Postmaster General, and Thomas William Ward, Commissioner of the General Land Office. Serving with President Anson Jones, the first Masonic Grand Master and the last President of the Republic, as members of his cabinet were the following Masons: Kenneth L. Anderson, Vice President, Ebenezer Allen, Secretary of State, William Gordon Cook, Secretary of War, William Beck Ochiltree, Secretary of the Treasury, and Ebenezer Allen, Attorney General. On July 4th, 1845, a convention of duly elected delegates met in the city of Austin for the purpose of drafting an ordinance accepting the terms of annexation offered to the Republic of Texas by the United States, and for the further purpose of drafting a constitution for the state of Texas. Of the 61 delegates to this convention, 36 were known to have been Masons. With such influential Masons holding prominent positions of trust and leadership in the organization and conduct of the government, it was inevitable that the principles of Freemasonry should become deeply rooted in the Texas Constitutions of 1836 and 1845, and in the general and special laws as enacted, interpreted, and enforced thereunder. Masonic growth and influence generally. From 1846 to 1861, the number of subordinate lodges chartered by the Masonic Grand Lodge of Texas increased from 24 to 269. By the year 1880, the number had increased to 515 lodges. This rapid growth is perhaps unequaled in all the annals of Texas Masonic history. In a recent article on Masonic lodges as time indicators of a town's prosperity, appearing in the Southwestern Historical Quarterly, Dr. S.W. Gazer refers to this phenomenal growth and says, Masons of every settlement with a promise of increase in prosperity and population applied for charters. With the passing of time, many of these towns' prosperity generally fell between the dates of chartering and demise of the Masonic lodges, which thus can be used as time indicators of the town's prosperity. Although no one can definitely measure, but with any degree of accuracy, the influence which the Masons exerted upon the social, moral, and spiritual life of the people of the early days of Texas, it is certain that such influence was for the good. Not only did the fraternity provide a desirable and needed medium of social intercourse and a high standard of ethics and charity for its own members, but an inspection of the minutes of almost every Masonic lodge of that era will disclose the close relationship that existed between it and the Protestant church or churches of the local community. And so it may truly be said that Freemasonry was in a real sense an inseparable link in the chain of circumstances tended to coordinate the activities of the state, the church, and the school in the laying the sure foundations upon which our social order has been thus far built. And yes, Freemasons were very influential in the rise of public education and the public education system from the very early days of the frontier in Texas. Educational program in the Grand Lodge of Texas and Masonic schools in Texas that teach the craft of Freemasonry, bro. So let's take a look at some of the famous Texian Freemasons. Stephen F. Austin, Louisiana Lodge number 109, Louisiana. Sam Houston, Holland Lodge number 36. Remember that the Texas Revolution happened in 1836, and this is Holland Lodge number 36. Coincidence? I don't think so. William B. Travis, Alabama Lodge number 3, Alabama. James Bowie, Lodge Les Humboldt, number 19, Louisiana. David Crockett, Freemason, Tennessee. James W. Fannin, Holland Lodge, number 36. Again, we have 36. 6 plus 3 equals 9. And then 9 times or 9 divided by 3 is 333. Yuan in Senguyen, Holland Lodge number 1. James Bonham, Freemason from South Carolina. Robert M. Williamson, Milan Lodge number 11. Lorenzo di Salvala, Independencia Lodge number 454, Mexico. Benjamin R. Milam, Haram Lodge number 4, Kentucky. Edward Burleson, McFarland Lodge number 3. Mirabeau Lamar, Harmony Lodge number 6. David G. Burnett, Holland Lodge number 1. Thomas J. Rusk, Milan Lodge number 2. Adolphus Stern, Milan Lodge number 2. R.E.B. Baylor Lodge number 125, Grand Lodge Chaplain 18 something. Jose Antonio Navarro, American Virtue Lodge number 16, Mexico. Anson Jones, Holland Lodge number 36, First Grand Master of the Republic of Texas. So Rick Perry says, regular craft Freemasonry, the Grand Lodge officers, and where it's at. So Rick Perry is saying that regular craft Freemasonry and the Grand Lodge the Grand Lodge officers tend to hold the real backbone of power in the lodges. Regular craft Freemasonry worldwide consists of being recognized as regular by the United Grand Lodge of England, meaning all roads lead to the UK. Fringe, irregular, and clandestine Freemasonry is controlled by the UGLE, but on the quiet. Where is the origin of Freemasonry? Babylon, Egypt, Canaan, Babel. Freemasonry derives from 17th century England and Scotland. Ghost of Niccolo. Conglomeration, maybe. Okay, Rick Perry says the Royal Society. Its ideology is drawn from the Greco-Egyptian tradition of Hermeticism. Hermeticism is a conglomeration of Platonism, Gnosticism, and the mystery cults. It is younger than Christianity. Look up Hermeticism. I've heard of it. I'll give it a look. Hardman! The literature lingered on the European underground until it was jockeyed by the mercantile order, most prominently around the time of Giovanni de' Medici's first foray into the first occult revival since the death of antiquity. Hard! The Latin Church's episcopacy prevented de' Medici from incorporating Hermeticism into the deposit of faith, and it had to migrate to Germany and France for the second occult revival. So yeah, this is going back a little bit before the beginning of the existence or the settlement of Texas. So once again, this is why I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to give this some time to think about. I wanted to give it some time to think about it. Let's talk about the enormous contribution to both sides, the Mexican and the Texan rebel side in the Texas War of Independence. So, again, let me stress what is so important about the Alamo? What is so important about remembering the Alamo? All it was just a bunch of people that were members of Freemasonic lodges in Louisiana, Alabama, and Tennessee that cut off a province from Mexico and brought it into the United States as a part of expanding the plantation crop sharing system of the Deep South, and with that, the exploitation of the slave labor that came with that further westward and ultimately to California. Because the full on plan was that once the Republic of Texas was founded and they separated from Mexico, they wanted to go into New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern California and expand that same kind of slaveholding plantation system. Look up the Knights of the Golden Circle for further verification or validation as to what I am saying in regards to this. The Knights of the Golden Circle were one of the higher Freemasonic orders that had a North American origin, and it was made up of northern copperheads and southern plantation slaveholders who wanted to expand the influence of the slave states to the west, to California, to Baja and Altai, California. And part of the plan of the Republic of Texas was to expand westward and southward into Mexican territories. When they were not able to do that on their own, they accepted an ordinance of being applied into a process of annexation into the United States. And then they could use the United States Army to facilitate the capturing of the territories in the Southwest. That's the only reason why the Texas Revolution was really fought. It was fought for the sole purpose of spreading the influence of classical Platonic republicanism and ideas of classical Enlightenment values into the province of Tejas and Quijolahuela, or Quejolatuela, or whatever it's called. Texas was like this kind of little round dotted province, and then there was a couple of other Mexican provinces around it. Before it separated and became the Republic of Texas. So, really, what was the real purpose of the Texas Revolution? Okay, so I'm sure that you guys understand that the Second World War was facilitated and driven by intel agents. I'm sure that you understand that secret agents and intelligence agencies were driving and playing off both sides in the Second World War. Why was it that none of the Ford factories were bombed by the Allies in Nazi Germany? Think about it. Dresden, Berlin, Kaiserslautern, Kaisershaven, Bremen, Hamburg, all of these major towns carpet bombed into complete oblivion. But not a single IBM or Ford factory touched in the Allied carpet bombings of World War II on Nazi Germany. Why is that? Because they played both sides off. IBM and Ford And all of these other American corporations were making money doing business with the Nazis at the very same time that they were headquartered in a country that was going to war with Nazi Germany. The same thing with the Civil War. They played off both sides, the North and the South. So why would you think that it would be any different with 1776 and 1836? Why would you think it would be any different? Like, you really think that 1776, 1836 is so special that there could be no Luciferian satanic influence involved in the American or the Texan revolutions? No. Same thing. For the last 300 plus years, these elites, the Freemasons and the mercantile orders and the Anglo-American establishment and their various lackeys, the Jesuits and the Jews and all these other people, it has been the same thing. It has been the same end goal to profit off of war. War racketeering is big bucks. Just like the petrodollar and Israel in the Middle East, it is big petro bucks. It is gigazillions. And all that money is based completely off of nothing besides credit. Credit that is based upon debt, and debt that is compiled in after in until one's government or one's country is literally trillions of dollars in debt. Debt that is based on absolutely nothing. Completely worthless debt. There is probably no gold at Fort Knox. Okay, if you want to know the truth about Fort Knox, there is no gold there. More than likely, there is very little to no gold, or there is no gold at all at Fort Knox. It is completely made up. Now, you see, the Chinese are very smart. They have bought up all of the gold and the U.S. American debts. And the Japanese have also bought up enormous shares of American debt. So the Chinese and the Japanese own large amounts of the debt that the United States and Western Europe has, because they're clever. They're very smart. They know what they're doing. And by the way, the Chinese and the Russian elites, they collaborate with the American and the British elites. They all collaborate at the top. At the top of the pyramid, they don't care about racial, ethnic, religious, or national distinctions. What they care about is they have control of the resources of the earth. The real satanic influence is Hermeticism, because it is a pervasive heresy with some philosophical depth, although contrary to Christianity and therefore erroneous. So, why would you assume that the American Revolution was a good thing? Okay, there's been Freemasonic lodges in Williamsburg, Virginia, and Boston, Massachusetts since the 1730s, all the way back to the 1730s. Benjamin Franklin, when he moved to Boston when Benjamin Franklin moved to Philadelphia from Boston, he became a Freemason. That was decades before the American Revolution ever broke out, when the eastern seaboard of what would become the United States was still a collection of colonies under the control of the United Kingdom. And it was the same Freemasons, the very same Freemasons in the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War, that fought on the side of the crown of England against the French were the very same Freemasons who signed and chartered the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and fought against the British, who under their leadership, like Lord Cornwallis, was also a Freemason. George Washington and Lord Cornwallis were both Freemasons of a loose craft Freemasonry. There's no exception to this, none whatsoever. This is a satanic influence that has been eroding and eating away at Christendom since the 17th century, and probably well before that. And by the way, Southern Israelite Drake Alden Shelton, he says that, if you go back just before 1776, it'll all be fine. Everything will be fine. There's no Freemasonry before 1776. Yes, there was. Okay. The latest that you could go back to prior to the mercantile takeover is the 1688 Glorious Revolution. 1688 Glorious Revolution. The Bank of England was set up in 1691. Okay, you have to go back to the 1688 Revolution. And Drake, your Puritans or your Pilgrims that you love so much, they were some of the staunchest supporters of Rosicrucianism and early crafted Masonry. Huguenots, French Huguenot exiles in London, were some of the biggest proponents from the shift of Freemasonry away from a working craft or a working guild craft to being less speculative and more of a metaphysical gentleman's club. That was French Huguenots and English gentlemen of various dissenter professions and confessions that drove that. Most Anglicans were not necessarily doing this, except the fact that Anglicans eventually came to drive and influence this. A lot of that was the Puritans and the Pilgrims. They were influenced by Boehm, by the German Jakob Boehm and Meister Eckhart. They were being influenced from the very beginning and settlement of Plymouth. The Puritans were being influenced by these people. And why is it that the moment that I point out in a clip that Toxic Angel is talking to Mormon Shaggy about Albert Pike's morals and dogma, that from that very moment, he deletes all of his uploads and streams and renames his channel Dead Channel? Why is that? And yet he flat out, lying out of his face, flat out says that he's not a Freemason. Yes, you are. Yes, Toxic Angel, you very much are a Freemason. Maybe you're not a complete Freemason, but you're enough of a Freemason to know and understand who Albert Pike was. And you admit yourself, Toxic Angel, in your stream today, that you went to a Masonic lodge in Mexico. You're a Freemason, bro. You're full of shit, Toxic Angel. I will admit, Toxic, that you're a lot smarter than Mormon Shaggy is. But you're not about to fool me about you not being a Freemason. Oh, no. No. I am very committed to what I do on my live streams. I am very committed to getting the truth out and pointing out the reality of this stuff. What's up, Sebastian Moran? Forge gang, let's go! Spot on Warhammer. The real. Oh, I already read that. Hold on a second. Scottish Rite is a southern jurisdiction, high degree Rite. The York Rite is more northerly, probably the root of their beef there. Are you talking about the southern and northern portions of the UK or the United States? So, are you talking about in the United Kingdom or the United States? However, folk like Pike engaged in straight Satanism in their downtime. Pike ran a coven in the Ozorks and used to seduce the views of his Masonic brethren there. Yeah, I remember you saying that when they first brought out this Freemasonry influence, they did it extremely subtly, and only a very small proportion of actual Freemasons practiced satanic rituals. And then later in the 1800s, they started to come out more openly with their Luciferian doctrines. Sebastian Moran says Rick Perry has in Albert Pike. Yes. The very same Albert Pike who was appointed as an agent to the Indians in the Oklahoma Territory for the Confederacy. The very same Albert Pike that created Morals and Dogma. Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Mid-Minham Friars, also aka the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Clubs were the British satanic groups adjacent to the lodge. You know, right down to the point of American independence, Benjamin Franklin was highly, highly involved in high society in London. He knew the king and he knew all the people, the important people in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Benjamin Franklin was highly connected to both the English and the French aristocracy. Highly, highly connected, you know. And allegedly, he changed sides and became a patriot. Oh, by the way, Benjamin Franklin's son was a Tory that fought on the side of the Loyalists in the American Revolution. You probably didn't know that, but now you do. Yes, Albert Pike. Yeah, okay, so he answered Sebastian Moran's question. The earliest Masonic craft rituals were not based on Solomon's temple, but a corrupted account of the story of Noah. It was based on Puritan theology and is proven by the Graham manuscript. Interesting. So this just further illustrates the fact that the Puritans and the Pilgrims were in fact a satanic sect, or a satanically led sect. Just like the Quakers, George Fox was a rebel rouser in England. George Fox, the founder of the Quakers, he was just a peasant Fabian rabble rouser. I'm sorry, not Fabian, a plebeian rabble rouser. The Quakers got their name because they shook and stuff, and they talked about having an inner spirit talk to them. That's satanic influence, okay? The Puritans and the Pilgrims were not good Christian people. They were satanically led. The ritual was based on Ham, conducted a necromantic ritual on the corpse of Noah in order to obtain the Mason's lost word. Oh, he's talking about the U.S. So, okay, so most of the major Confederate politicians were York Rite Freemasons, like Jeff Davis, whereas or Robert E. Lee would have been York Rite Masons, whereas Ulysses Grant and most of the other Union generals would have been Scottish Rite Freemasons. That's very interesting, that dichotomy. Sebastian Moran says he, Albert Pike, must have moved in the right circles to know about 3 coming massive wars. Oh, he did, bro. I mean, H.G. Wells was talking about a world war long before 1914. H.G. Wells, for example, was talking about the War of the Worlds in 1895. 20-something years before World War I broke out. War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, 1896. That was in Victorian England, the nighter end of Victorian England. What was that all about? What was all these books and works that H.G. Wells, the Fabian socialist that he was, wrote up about this international arbitration, no national borders, no kind of national arbitrations. Basically, the same thing that what's his face? What was that guy? Kalargi. That's it. Count Kalargi was pushing in the 1920s. H.G. Wells and Aleister Crowley and Kalargi, Count Kalargi, they were all talking about the European Union in the early 1920s. Okay? How do they know this stuff? How did they know that all this stuff was going to happen? Because they were informed in the know. Mazzini was one of the hidden chiefs mentioned in Theosophy. Oh yeah, by the way, Albert Pike and Mazzini, they frequently exchanged letters on various matters at the time. So Mazzini was one of the highest-ranking rites of Freemasonry, and he tried to lead a uprising in Rome in 1848 to overthrow the Papal States and create a Central Italian Republic, but it failed. He failed, and he was corresponding with Karl Marx and Albert Pike. Oh yeah, yeah. Albert Pike corresponded with Karl Marx and Mazzini and all these people. And Thomas Carlyle in Scotland. Yeah, Thomas Carlyle too. I didn't care. Thomas Carlyle wrote many books about the dangers of the Industrial Revolution. And Charles Dickinson was talking about how horrible it affected the English working class, with all these factories that were being built and constructed in the 1800s. Thomas Carlyle wrote lots of books about the dangers of industrial society and how it was ruinous to traditional culture. Sebastian Moran says Fabian ruled by deception. Scottish Rite in the South. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, because of all of the Presbyterian churches in the southern states. That would make sense because of all of the connections between the Presbyterian Church of Scotland and the enormous influence that the Presbyterian Scotch-Irish had in the southern states, and therefore that would make sense that the Scottish Rite would be very pronounced, and then the York Rite more so in the north. They're no longer regional now, though. Yeah, so after the 1700s, all of these different scattered branch craft orders began to all conjoin into a very cliched web or a network of control that was more or less complete by the First World Order. I'm sorry, the First World War, not the First World War. My bad. H.G. Wells predicted World War II in the shape of things to come. The first installment of his Fabian socialist trilogy, followed by the Open Conspiracy and New World Order. Pretty blatant. Yeah, didn't he write that in the middle of the 20s, the middle of the 1930s? And there was actually a British cinema film that was based on that book, The Shape of Things to Come. He was talking about war in the air, how you could use these bombers to fly over cities and drop bombs with gas and poison people with gas from bombs dropped from the air. This all sounds today, very standard military doctrine, but back then it was a novelty. These kind of new military upgraded weapons. Somebody wrote a book in the interwar period that also predicted the atomic bomb, but it was censored by the US government because they didn't want the atomic project to get leaked. But of course, the atomic bomb is fake. By the way, in case you don't know, the atomic bomb is not real. Atomic warfare does not really exist. It's completely made up. So yeah, H.G. Wells predicted the coming of the Second World War and the struggle between the capitalists and the communists against fascism. Garibaldi too. Garibaldi was the guy that led the red shirts into Sicily. He led an army into Sicily to topple the kingdom of the two Sicilies and unite southern Italy with the rest of the boot of Italy with the rest of the peninsula. The Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, derived from a form of Freemasonry, originating in Garibaldi's Melu. I wonder what influence Freemasonry had on Benito Mussolini. The Ku Klux Klan regalia is replete with Scottish Rite symbols. Yeah, I was going to talk about the Klan at one point, but as you can see, the Ku Klux Klan, they're not an exception of the norm. They carried on the Freemasonic traditions of the antebellum slaveholders and the Confederate generals. Nathan Bedford Forrest was the one who founded the Ku Klux Klan, and he was a Scottish Rite Freemason. Originally, they wanted Robert E. Lee to be the first leader of the Klan, but they couldn't get him on with doing it because he was too old, and he was retired after the Civil War, and so they got Nathan Bedford Forrest in. The Ku Klux Klan were formed in Pulaski, Tennessee, by the way. The film adoption was called Things to Come. Freemasonry is explicitly mentioned and referred to as wings over the world. So the Freemasonic connections are tied into the bomber planes, or the bomber plane fleets that are used to go over and bomb out the cities of the enemy territory. There are literally scenes in that movie of planes dropping bombs on London. And there's literal scenes where you look at like the tramway in London, the tramway and like the street network and buildings bombed out, people going into underground shelters, movie theaters and streets getting blown up by bombs and air raids. And air raid sirens too. And they drop gas on civilians. This is in a movie that was made in 1936. You take footage from that movie, Things to Come, and you compare it with the scenes from the Blitz in 1940, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing with the two world wars. And indeed, pretty much every war since really the 1500s, when Christendom, European Christendom or feudal Christendom was fragmented and torn apart by all of these different dissenting Protestant churches and these absolute royal monarchs that took advantage of breaking away from the pontificate and forming their own churches and overthrowing their feudal aristocracy and gaining absolute royal power over the citizens of their countries. You know, the mercantile orders, they funneled that, just like they funneled the Reformation. All of this stuff happens for a reason. Founded by NBF on behalf of Pike, maybe. Pike was a grand dragon or some regional leader of some rank. Yeah, he was. I could read the letters of Albert Pike, but here's the thing. The historical authenticity of Albert Pike's letters to Mazzini is questionable, but we could go ahead and read it. Aleister Crowley had a profound influence on Adolf Hitler. Like Aleister Crowley, he took a lot of influence from Albert Pike and Madame Blavatsky. More so, Madame Blavatsky. And he influenced a lot of Adolf Hitler's thoughts and thinking processes. There's even some conspiracy theories that claim that Aleister Crowley dressed up and was an exact lookalike to Adolf Hitler. That Adolf Hitler had doubles that would dress up and pretend to be him, and Aleister Crowley was one of these dress-up doubles of Adolf Hitler. So yeah, here we go. Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini. Illuminati plan for 3 world wars. And this was written out on August 15th, 1871. So the following is a letter. The speculation claimed that Albert Pike wrote this to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871 regarding a conspiracy involving 3 world wars. The Pike letter to Giuseppe Mazzini was on display in the British Museum Library in London until 1977. This letter has been claimed by many internet sites to reside in the British Library in London, which denies the letter even exists. Interesting. First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergencies caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time that we would need it for the final social cataclysm. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. So that's Albert Pike's letter. Isn't that interesting? Hitler slept with a copy of Isis Unveiled, Blavatsky, next to his bed. The Nazi religious ideology was theosophy. Even the predecessors and influencers of Hitler, Guido von List, Georg Lanz von Liebenfels. By the way, Liebenfels was a priest. He was an ex-priest from the church, or a friar, and he was kicked out of the church because of his involvement in Luciferianism. And Karl Maria Wilgett. The full scope of their vision is contained in Albert Rosenberg's The Myth of the 20th Century. That's very interesting. I know who Guido von List and Liebenfels are. Liebenfels. Or Liebenfels. This is interesting. Give me a second here. Here's something that's interesting. I mean, you can take this as whatever you want. I'm not forcing you to be convinced that this is the ultimate highest moral truth. Not at all. I'm presenting you information. You can take it for what it's worth, but I will show you something very interesting that I found on this Metapedia. So this is on the Metapedia for the Third Reich. If you translate this into English, you find something very interesting. Third Reich. Okay, so this is not on the English page of Metapedia, Third Reich. This is in the German page. You have to use Google Translator to translate this. The concept of a Third Reich in intellectual history. The idea of the Third Reich dates back to the 1st century CE, and is non-European, namely Judeo-Christian. Accounts point to the 12th century cleric Joachim of Flores or of Fiore, who made a prophetic system out of it. He conceived of the course of human history. Christian universalist meme has an ascent through 3 successive kingdoms or ages. The age of the Father, the law in the Old Testament sense, and the age of the Son, the gospel, follow the Third Reich. That of the Holy Spirit, the kingdom of love and freedom, concluding the redemption Christian meme of mankind. The assumption of the sequence of 3 kingdoms in the history of man has very often been imagined or fantasized against the background or in the sense of a theology of the kingdom of God by Lessing, Hegel, and Schilling. The latter imagined a Joachim or Joachim end age of Christianity, and thus the historical development of a Petrinian or Pauline one. So Fichte saw the Third Reich of Reason a German task for the first time, which was to be realized by a despot to Germany. The German philosopher Gottlieb Frege unspecifically addressed the term Third Reich in his 1918 publication Der Thought. Mauler van den Broek, the Third Reich, 1923, used the term Second Reich. The Holy Roman Empire of the German nation from 800 to 1806 was the First Reich, and the German Empire from 1871 to 1918 was the Second Reich. He expected that this would be followed by a Third Reich. Mauler van den Broek detached the idea of the Third Reich completely from the Christian realm and proclaimed it conservative revolutionary historical thinking as the political empire of the Germans. So isn't that interesting that isn't that really interesting how right there something from Joachim of Fiore and his 3-age prophecy is in an article about the Third Reich in German. So that ought to tell you something about that, about how the Third Reich was actually Gnostic. That triadic formula is ubiquitous throughout Gnosticism and Neoplatonism, and latterly in Hegel. Hegel was very influenced by Neoplatonism and Kabbalah. Karl Marx was a student of Hegel, actually, and so was Friedrich Engels. Like both of these people, and also a lot of the philosophers that later influenced Hitler were also students of Hegel. There's this Slovenian guy, I forgot his name. He talks real weird. He's from Slovenia. His name is Zek something, Zwegli Zek or whatever. He's from Slovenia. He's a big communist apologist, and this is the funny thing, but he doesn't call himself a Marxist, but a left-wing Hegelian. He calls himself a left Hegelian. I thought that was very bizarre. The young Hegelians, or Hegelians, they inverted Hegel, but the song remained the same. Sorry, they inverted Hegel, but the song remained the same. What was that communist philosopher from Slovenia? Yeah, here he is, Slavoj Žižek. That's his name, Slavoj Žižek. Yeah, this is the guy that says that he is a left-leaning Hegelian. His name is Slavoj Žižek. He is a communist. He believes in Marxism, but he doesn't refer to himself as a Marxist-Leninist, but he calls himself a leftist Hegelian, referring to Hegel. And that ought to tell you right there that communism comes straight from Hegelian dialectics. I mean, for example, Marx and Friedrich Engels in Das Kapital talked about dialectical materialism. This was a very big philosophy within Marxism and the notion of class struggle. And this was even taught in the Soviet Union. If you ever read any of the history books of the Soviet Union, in some of the earlier history books, they only talk about the Russian history of class struggle and not the history of the state of Russia. They completely leave out the state of pre-revolutionary Russia, and they only will talk about the struggle, the feudal and capital struggle of the Russian proletariat until 1917, and then they talk about the history of the Soviet state. In the later history books, they change this and they bring back the traditional narrative of historical Russia. But for a long time, they only talked about the proletarian class of Russia before 1917. So isn't that bizarre? And they always talk about dialectical materialism, thwarted dialectical principles and stuff. That's all that this is. Friedrich Nietzsche was another major philosopher that they say had a tremendous influence on National Socialism. I don't know how true that is, but Friedrich Nietzsche, or Friedrich Nietzsche was also another major influencer on the philosophy of National Socialism. He always talked a lot about the suffering of life and about natural selection and all of this Eastern philosophy. He was highly influenced by Eastern Hinduist philosophy. A lot of these thinkers were. So, I mean, you want to talk about the stupid Alamo and about the Texas Revolution. Well, all of that was done by Freemasons. I mean, what do you think you're achieving with that? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Texas was full of a bunch of Native American tribes that were nomadic, completely nomadic and pastoralist, no idea about anything about civilization. And then the Spanish come and they build like a few haciendas and like some missions that are run by friars and stuff. And then most of that, by the way, was in New Mexico. That really they didn't even really go that much into Texas. Then Mexico separates because Napoleon and the French invade Spain, and they put in Joseph Bonaparte as the puppet ruler of Spain. In Mexico, they're against that Napoleonic takeover. They want to maintain the conservative, authoritarian nature of the Bourbons, so Mexico rebels. That's the start of the Mexican Revolution. So Texas is a Mexican province. There's Mexicans that have always been in Texas. They're called the Tejanos. And then the Anglo-Americans come in, the Freemasonic lodges that are connected to Mexico and to Spain and to the different southern states. All of those connections are how Freemasonry is set up in Texas. So they come in and they set up these Freemasonic lodges and they break away and rebel against Mexico. America encouraged the Mexican separation and breakup of the Spanish Empire, and then it supported the Monroe Doctrine, which said that Spain and these other colonies could not interfere in the Americas. Mexico broke away from Spain. Texas broke away from Mexico. It went from being a largely Hispanic Roman Catholic province into being a more Anglo Freemasonic Protestant republic, and then later state in the United States. That's all it was. All of those people that fought at the Alamo, most of them, a high proportion of them were Freemasons. What is to celebrate in that? Okay, you know that Freemasonry is inherently Luciferian. Why do you think that I need to celebrate that? A complete waste of time. Dialectical materialism. Oh, so Hegel was not the one that invented dialectical materialism. That was something that was taken off by later philosophers that followed his work. The Gnostic notion of two diametrically opposed, equal, and opposite poles in a constant struggle for power. You mean spirit and flesh. Hence their perverted idea that every relationship is a struggle for power, and the ensuing narratives of oppression. What's up, Taste of Ashes? Pickled cheese. Did you know that? Rick Perry is a hard man. Yes, he is. We're all hard men here at the Forge. What's up, Chauncey? Forge Gang 1. So yeah, I mean, seriously, what point is there in trying to celebrate these Freemasons and all of this garbage that they brought over with the influence of the Enlightenment? Because it just doesn't make sense. You don't. So anyways, yeah. So the point of my video is that if you're going to look at the Alamo and you want to be a hard thinker, then you'll realize that there's always two sides to a story. Yeah, there was patriots that overthrew a small irrelevant territory in Mexico and then made it part of the United States, only to then break away again, join the Confederacy, and then lose the war, and then be forced to rejoin again under military occupation, under Reconstruction. It's the same thing. Like, what's so great about that? You know, Southern Israelite is not someone to take any kind of inspiration from, but he realizes that the only legitimate movements to follow are from before the late 1700s. That's why Drake Shelton is always constantly talking about going back to the British colonial system, because he knows that that was the last time that there is an actual organic system of government that was not solely functioning on some kind of a mercantile system. But in reality, you have to go back to 1688. You have to go back all the way back to 1688 to really get to a pre-mercantile established parliamentary system. You can't just go back to 1776 when in America the feudal parish model of the church was overthrown and replaced with all of these hundreds of free churches that have no connection or relevancy to anything with their 501c3 irrelevance. I mean, you have to go back really before Oliver Cromwell, the Puritan lunatic that he was, you know. The Alamo, at the end of the day, the Alamo is irrelevant. It has very little to do with the actual narrative of European heritage people. And that's just basically the point that I wanted to say. I want to get more into 1776 and Freemasonic involvement in that, but I just wanted to start off with Texas, since I live here in Texas, and Texas is no different from any of the other 50 states. Its history and its surveying and formation has a geographic abstraction is completely tied in with the development and evolution of Templar craft masonry, or just craft Freemasonry overall, in Texas. And Freemasons have been in the American colonies since the 1730s. Like, that was decades before 1776. Freemasons are a cult, very much so. They're directly influenced by Hermeticism. Really love these historical videos, Warhammer. You're very welcome, Chauncey. Is Ghost of Niccolo here with my darn feet pics or what? That's kind of creepy. That's pretty creepy if you ask me. Phoebia Slick says these historical vids are top tier stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, you're very welcome. I will do more of them in the future. That sounds awesome. 1776. Deep dive into history. Yeah, when the founding fathers decided to exploit their connections to the friary, to the friars and Freemasonry, to break away from nobility and clerical control and the feudal parish model and create a completely mercantile or merchant controlled society. Because right after the American Revolution, the Bank of the United States is chartered, or the first Bank of America is chartered, and all of this fiat currency thing that is based upon credit that is taken from debt is set up. The founding fathers, they create the first American bank, at least James Hamilton does. Hamilton is an evil man. Hamilton is one of the most evil men in history. Alexander Hamilton brought in the notion of chartered fractional reserve banks into the early United States. Completely got rid of the tally sticks of the pre-revolutionary era and made the American government completely bankrupt because they couldn't pay off the debts to the first American bank. This is the problem when you have this mercantile society, this mercantilistic society that comes of age and breaks out and declares independence. It does all of this kind of crap. It brings in all of this debt and fractional reserve banking, and America has been trillions of dollars in debt ever since the Revolutionary War. I don't even think that Congress has ever paid off its Revolutionary War debts, or any of the debts of the wars that have been fought by the United States from the Revolutionary War down to the present. None of it. Complete waste. Deep dive into history. You're very welcome. Toxic can be streaming about the hottest new drama, and he still won't match views with Hammer going through history, unless he has Shaggy on and he's spurging. Yeah, dude, I'm way more interesting than Toxic's retarded take on material Platonism. Like, Toxic Angel is a materialist. He kind of, Toxic Angel is an atheistic materialist. He's a Platonic materialist, and that's where he bases all of his atheistic doctrines from is materialistic Platonism or Platonic materialism. And the school of the logical positivists under Bertrand Russell, well, Bertrand Russell was a part of it, they literally disproved all of the arguments that the empiricists made. Toxic Angel is an empiricist, and the logical positivists completely discredited all of their arguments. And evolution can be disproven with Noam Chomsky's book on language. Noam Chomsky wrote a book about how language supposedly developed and evolved, and none of these paleontologists can come to an agreement on how human language evolved. He even admits himself, Noam Chomsky admits, that language is completely based on a gift of God that is given to man. And he completely admits that it's based on intelligent design. Who cares about Toxic or Shaggy? Sorry, Niccolo attacks me about feet pics during my cult videos. Lol. Interesting. We talking about the Battle of the Alamo, though. Yeah, it was completely pushed by Freemasons. The Battle of the Alamo is Texas Freemasons versus Mexican Freemasons. That's it. That's the Texas Revolution in a nutshell. Texan Freemasons that have connections to lodges in Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama, versus Mexican Freemasons that have connections to lodges in Mexico City. That's all it was. Sebastian Moran says Cromwell brought them back in. They repaid his treason by chopping his body to bits and sending said bits to different parts of England. Are you talking about the bankers, the Amsterdam banking elite? Yeah. Chartered banks in Amsterdam funneled money to Oliver Cromwell to help him set up the New Model Army and later the Protectorate. The only thing that Charles Stuart and the people that supported Charles Stuart, the Cavaliers, were doing was they were upholding their land holding or their land titular obligations to Charles Stuart. That's all. The Cavaliers were not religious fanatics. George Fitzhugh points out about this in his work, The Norman in America. He talks about how the Cavaliers were just upholding their land-holding obligations to the king and to the country, whereas the Puritans were completely taken into religious fanaticism. And yeah, Oliver Cromwell was betrayed by the very same banking cartels that profited off of his war against the Stuarts. They turned against him. The very same people who supported Cromwell in Parliament and his New Model Army were the same people that supported the restoration of Charles II in 1660. Queen of Spades says, what about Colonial James C. Neal, though? LOL. James C. Neal. What about him? Yeah, he was a Freemason. William B. Travis was a Scottish Rite Freemason. Under Stephen B. Travis, they were all Freemasons. There was no exception. Queen of Spades. I read that there is no petrodollar. It's really just the American dollar, and the American war machine controls trade worldwide, like Chinese versus American Navy. No, the American government has no control over its debt. The Federal Reserve is a private organization that is mostly co-opted and controlled by overseas bankers. In fact, the real owners are the people that run the City of London. It is the people in London who control and run and have access to giving these reserve debt-based credit currency to the American government. The American government has no control over the Anglo-American establishment that runs it. Toxic makes 0 sense, lol, from an atheist who covers cults on here. Toxic knows crap about history, religion, or life. Tell him I said that. Fired that simp, lol. Toxic going down the drain. We have Freemasons here in Canada, but it's real different. In your country of Canada, which was founded in 1867 by the Empire Loyalists, Canada has basically a lot of French and English influence, but it's really the same thing. You all have the same craft masons in your Commonwealth as we do in our Union of States. It's strange, actually, that here on the little island over the pond, a lot still like the cunt. Not me, though, as you can tell. Are you talking about Queen Elizabeth II? Queen Elizabeth II is a Knight of Malta. I'm sure you know this, but Queen Elizabeth II is a member of the Order of the Garter, and she is a Knight of Malta. She's a Maltese knight, or part of the Knights of St. John. Yes, Queen. Cromwell, that is. There's still a lot of Brits that like Oliver Cromwell. That's very weird. I mean, we've got a lot of people that like George Washington and look up to George Washington, and it's the same stuff over here as with Oliver Cromwell. Ghost of Niccolo says, yes, Queen. The American Navy is based on the English Imperial Navy. Yes and no, but the American Navy was based upon the American Navy was gradually built up over a very long time, and the original Continental Navy is not the same as the current U.S. Navy. The current U.S. Navy is under the Department of Defense, which replaced the Department of the Navy that was set up in the 1790s. So there's over a 200-year gap. There's a lot of development and evolution going on. But yeah, the American Navy is based upon typical European colonizing Navy. Queen has me blocked. Why? LOL, she's afraid. Yikes. Why is that? Exactly. We have the same cult, but it was formed a bit differently. Ghost of Niccolo, I think you miss me, lol. No, Queen, I think you're projecting, sweetheart, but it's okay. Queen of coal burning. Wow. Queen Elizabeth has her own autonomous Order of Malta, completely separate from the original order. It's basically a counterfeit. Oh, I see. Warhammer, yes, indeed. A lot still like and praise Cromwell. Wow. So, in much of the same way as we Americans have the cult of Abraham Lincoln, you guys have the cult of Oliver Cromwell. It's pretty crazy. All he did was just basically destroy a lot of the upper classes and put the entire island of Great Britain under military occupation by his new model army generals, and basically committed almost something akin to a Puritan jihad against the common, ordinary English people. It was basically a theocratic rule or theocratic ruling based on the Old Testament. LOL, I came for my feet pics, but the convo was more interesting than you. Ooh, Cromwell, really? Huh? That explains some things about the UK, LOL. I don't know who that is, but probably because they hit on me or some crap, LOL. Yeah, I'm not a dating counselor. Queen Elizabeth should never have been in that role. None of them in that family should be. Well, she's really from a German family. Like, Queen Elizabeth originally comes from a German ruling dynasty that has ties and connections to the Guelphs, or to the Guelphs on the side of people in the Holy Roman Empire that supported the Pope over the Emperor. Yeah, I don't want to derail the stream talking about she-gay. Warhammer knows his history. Yeah, that guy's an asshole. I need someone to shove some solid food down my throat. I can't eat no solid food. I'm just too much of a weak little bitch. I'm on vacation. You should listen to Warhammer. He has good info and chat is always fun. Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it original at Queen. At Queen of Spade, yes. Also, the cult of the so-called royals. I am in between a royalist society and a communist revolution waiting to happen soon. That doesn't sound right, bro. Wow. Dude, the left is gaining a lot of traction in America, too. A lot of people are not believing in God and supporting more pro-abortionist roles and stuff. America is not that far behind Britain. That does make sense, though. The Queen's highest order of knighthood is the Garter. The ritual was written by Elias Ashmole, and it involves themes of witchcraft. Significant that the Garter is the highest order over the Christian knighthood themes of Malta or Malta. Shaggy is just in love with me, and I can't help it. LMAO. Laughing my ass off. Don't blame me for that, laughing my ass off. So the Queen's highest order of knighthood is the Garter. The ritual was then written by Elias Ashmole, and it involves themes of witchcraft. Significant that the Garter is the highest order over the Christian knighthood themes. So it just goes to show that the leadership in Britain is full-on Luciferian. The royals in the UK have a bigger cult than the Kardashians in the USA, LOL. Warhammer, I think they are quarter or half German at the most. You know the other side, foreskin removed. Yeah, absolutely, bro. The Windsors are a foreign German dynasty known as Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha, or Gotha. They had a ruling how they also have a family cadet branch that rules Belgium as well. The royal family is full of sickos. Prince Andrew and Sir Jimmy Savile was knighted. Yeah, the royals are complete degenerates. The mercantile orders completely took over the royals. Like the royal family is completely 100% in league with the mercantile orders. They give pedos knighthood. Yeah, they do. Aleister Crowley, LOL. All of these different systems of government are not really that different when you begin to realize that they're all blatantly Luciferian. Queen, did you know that AI can't show feet because AI are not programmed to have feet? It's science. Yep, it is. It's established science. Are you AI made by Ash Mufara? Because then you should have a full body and be able to run my biz for me. LOL. I wonder why AC was kicked out of Italy. Couldn't be because he was MI5. Oh, I wonder why Aleister Crowley was kicked out of Italy. Because he was FM. He was kicked out relatively early in the fascist period, wasn't he? Like Aleister Crowley was running this satanic Luciferian house on an island in the south of Italy. And he was engaging in all of this sexual ritual magic or sexual orgies around ritual magic and just the utmost absurd, insane things that you could imagine. Oh, the royal fam is messed up a lot. You mean the royal family? Well, especially with the Middletons. Prince Harry married Kate Middleton. That was back in 2013. Another one of these royals married an American wife. And the Queen Elizabeth, does not like that. She does not like the idea of her extended family being married in with Americans. I am doing an AC deep dive soon. He ran the Luciferian cult, yes, in Italy, and my people were like, GTFOH, LOL. Oh, get the fuck out of here. Wow. Princess Diana, all I will say. Yeah, so it's been a little bit long than I wanted to go. Aleister Crowley, shall we say, had a small person brought to him, and even Mussolini had to boot the effer out. Damn. All of these secret societies and the influences that they run, or the hold that they have. That's why I'm not really going to ever be a nationalist, because it's completely worthless. All of these man-made systems and man-made or man-contrived systems of worldly government or worldly domain is completely influenced by the devil. Keep up this great work. Would love to hear more about the 1776 stuff. Yeah, so it was mostly just about the Texas Revolution and the Alamo. So I hope that y'all enjoyed it. I'll play an outro song, I guess. It was nice to take your questions and answer them. Hopefully I answered all of your questions in the best possible way. I'm going to play an outro song, and I guess that'll be it. But yeah. Bottom line is that Texas was not some kind of a wonderful, incredible place that was like somehow different from the rest of North American society. It was a Freemasonic inspired Hermetic mercantile rebellion from the beginning.
Legs on the track. Purchase your tracks today. Purchase your tracks today.
Thank you all for coming in and watching my stream. You all have a wonderful evening and good day. Godspeed to you all.